Good morning, Oracles. Well, last night we had the annual shareholder meeting. It was awesome. For those of you who joined on the live stream with us, thank you so much. Had a great time on there. You guys were an absolute riot in the comments section. So as of this morning, the stock is starting to push up a little bit more. The entire market is up a little bit green this morning pre-market. Tesla's pushing that 930 mark again. We'll see if we test 935 and maybe break through. So we're going to go over all the meeting notes at Oracle speed today and go over all these things. Nothing that came out of this that I think is going to boost the stock up. You know, it didn't really move much in after hours yesterday. Again, this is something that we had discussed, which was if it was going to be just a reiteration of a lot of the things that we already knew with just some more finer details, stock probably wasn't going to move that much, and that's exactly what we saw. So the first half hour or so was, well, all the boring stuff and some of the objections to some of the proposals that they had and people who wanted to vote for things that the board was against, and pretty boring stuff. So we kind of snoozed through that, and there was a lot of joking going on for that stuff. And then they moved on, and of course, the big answer that everybody wants is the stock split was approved. So we don't have any further details on this. Within 4 days after the meeting yesterday, they will be filing their 8K, and in that we'll get more details. So we should be getting the split date at that time. So wait 4 days, so we should see that by the middle of next week, and we will have that information for the split details. So after all the boring stuff, Elon came out, and Elon was in great form last night. Kind of seemed like he wanted to share a lot more, but he couldn't do it because he's not, trying to keep things inside. But so went over a bunch of the stats that they had going on. Free cash flow growth is insane for them right now. It is just growing exponentially. And looking at an exponential curve of the production growth since the beginning of the company, it is a perfect growth curve. Something that you create in the beginning of the company as hey, this is the potential that we can do. Well, they actually did it, and it's continuing to go forward. So at this point, Tesla has produced 3 million vehicles. And so someone asked him, over 10 years, you guys were able to produce 3 million vehicles. What do you think you'll see in the next 10 years? And he's like, well, maybe 300 million. So Elon responded with, well, I'd be surprised if we didn't hit 100 million. So expect over the next 10 years, another 97 million vehicles coming out of Tesla. And he was talking about FSD and reiterated the elevator analogy that he made in the past, where elevators used to be all manually operated, and then they came out with a way to automate that, and there were some hiccups in the beginning, and once they got through that, that's all we know. And if you see somebody who is manually operating an elevator, it's like nostalgic and things like that. And says that's the way that we are going to be going in the future. So in the future, seeing somebody manually driving a car is going to be more nostalgia than reality at the time. And he did state something that we already knew as well, is that they have the highest operating margins of any automotive manufacturer in the world. So this is great. We've already known this, and even last quarter was lower than normal, so they're going to continue to push even higher with their operating margins, continuing that industry lead. And speaking of industry lead, they were discussing about getting themselves to 20 million vehicles and how many factories they expected to have. This was one of the investor questions as well. And, not to float my own boat, but, they were talking about 10 to 12 factories, which is exactly what I had predicted that they would be looking for by the end of the decade to be able to produce these 20 million vehicles. So Elon broke it down a little bit further and said, each factory should be able to do 1.5 to 2 million vehicles each. Fremont is the exception because it's an older factory and they're almost capped out. He said they should be able to push to 700,000 to 800,000 vehicles out of there, but that's really the max limit for them. Otherwise, they're going to be having friendly competition between all of their factories to see who can produce the most. He did tout Shanghai, saying that, they are just masters of what they do, so it's going to be very tough to compete with them, but it'll be nice to have that friendly competition as we go forward. He did say that Fremont is the highest output factory in North America. This is for all automotive manufacturers. And through all of this production and all of the vehicles that they have on the road and all of the energy that Tesla itself has consumed, they have actually produced more energy than they have consumed through all of their solar. So that's a huge feat right there, where people are saying, it's not as good for the environment. They're using so much energy. It's a draw on the grid. Well, this is Tesla literally proving that they are producing more than they are using. So the more people start to switch and transition over to sustainable energy and put in that hard work, the more we can actually make it happen. People just need to put in the effort to make it get there. And he did say that down the line, everybody's going to end up having EVs. He understands fully that it's not going to be just a Tesla world that everybody is living in, but what is going to separate them from everyone else is their manufacturing prowess. They have production at a level that no one else can achieve. So even if other people are going to come out with vehicles that can compete with Teslas, people have software or FSD that can compete with Teslas, Tesla has that manufacturing prowess that no one else can compete with. This is what is going to separate them from everyone else long-term down the road. Another piece that we talked about the other day was the supercharging network, and Elon did state that they're looking to double the supercharging network next year. They are most likely going to be doing an online poll to ask people, where would you like to see another supercharger set up near you? And they're going to start taking that into account because they want to make sure that they're putting up superchargers in places that people need them. And he did say that if you live in a place that you feel needs a supercharger, chances are they are already working on it. And then a big question that people did want answered, which was one of the investor questions, is with all the free cash flow coming in, are they going to be raising capex? Are they going to be doing buybacks or dividends? So Elon did say, they're looking at capex spending, because we're in semi-uncertain times right now, they want to make sure that they have as much free cash flow as possible to be able to weather any storms that could potentially arise, that they cannot foresee right now. But they're looking at, obviously putting spending into things. He did allude to the fact that they're probably going to be announcing a new factory later this year. Seemed like he kind of wanted to tell us where that is, so we might find that out sooner rather than later. But we know that they are working on other factory locations. He was joking about Canada. A lot of people were voting on Canada. So, we'll find out soon enough on that. So we know that they're going to be putting spending there. But he did say flat out that, if they get through these tough economic times, which he did say that we could see a mild recession for the next 18 months, but he said he's just guessing. He doesn't know. Trying to foresee macroeconomics is very difficult and a dangerous thing to do. But foreseeing a potentially mild recession for the next 18 months and inflation dropping quickly means that, all this extra cash flow coming in, he said, we get through these, buybacks are on the table as an option for things to do. So again, this just straight up answers the question that we have been debating on here, is whether they do buybacks or not. Sounds like once we get some clear vision of the economy for the world in the future, once we get a clear sign that we are through the tough times, buybacks are going to be on the table. And then he did answer the real estate question about Tesla restaurants and other supercharging networks that are going up in places. And he said, look, he's like, we are looking to do these, not a lot of them. He says he understands, like we had discussed on here, that financially it's not the most wise thing to spend your money on, but it'd be something cool like Blade Runner meets Grease meets the Jetsons all combined into one, and have different fun things at all of the different places for them. So looks like they're going to be doing something probably in the LA area to start, and then they'll kind of look around from there. But it's not going to be anything massive as far as spending goes, but something cool that Tesla can provide for people for when they're charging their vehicles. And he did reiterate that the Cybertruck is going to be going into production next year, most likely seeing volume production starting middle of next year. And, he did answer that question about the Cybertruck and, the specs and the pricing. And he says, look, we came out with all that in 2019. We could not foresee the inflation going up as it did over the last 3 years. So yes, things are going to change. The specs have changed significantly. The pricing is going to be changing. So we will get more information on that later this year. But we kind of anticipated that it would be silly to assume that we were going to keep the same thing that we were before. So he just reiterated all of that. And so then he got to the master plan part 3 question, and he said he is finalizing things, might be done by the end of the month to be able to share it there, and just kind of reiterated it's really more about, scaling to extreme size. And when he means scaling to extreme size, it is transitioning the entire world to sustainable energy. That is really what his whole master plan was from the beginning, between part 1, part 2, and now part 3, that goes right along with their mission statement. So part 3 is just finalizing getting the entire world transitioned over to sustainable energy and all of the specific needs that go along with that. So I think when we get master plan part 3, it's going to dial into all the specific amounts of everything that are needed, from materials to factories to all the different energy generation that we need that's out there, to the battery packs and all the mega packs. All of this, I think, are going to be included into this master plan part 3 in detail. So again, he said hopefully finished by the end of the month, but as soon as it's done, he'll release that. And of course, they did have the US and China relations question that comes up, and Elon said, and thank you, Alan, for pointing out the fact that Elon should probably keep his mouth shut during that question, and sure enough, he basically did. That was great. We were on the live stream, and it came up and everybody was joking and laughing because we know that if Elon says something wrong or anything that could be misinterpreted, it could go badly. And even Elon himself says, oh, what can go wrong by answering this question? So he basically passed on that one, and everybody was happy with the fact that he did that. And then they were discussing FSD and how it pertains to, them versus other companies. And they said, hey, when you're coming over the robo-taxi network, what cities do you think you're going to be starting in? And Elon's like, well, it's not really how our system works. We're not looking at a system that is going to be locked to certain cities. It is kind of free roaming, FSD that can work everywhere. He's like, literally, if you had a computer generated Earth that you created separately, you could literally take FSD vehicles, put them on this computer generated Earth, and it could function properly on that computer generated Earth. That's how they are building their FSD versus all of these other companies who have their robo-taxis geo-fenced to certain cities because they had to input all of that data. So that was the huge piece that came out of that for FSD. And that's what we're looking at for robo-taxis. That is the direction that they are going, is a free roaming FSD and robo-taxi network that can travel anywhere in the world. Now, he did say that obviously when it comes to regulations could slow them down in certain areas, as we have discussed before on here, but that would be the only thing that's going to slow them down in certain areas. Otherwise, the design of the program is to be able to operate everywhere. And he said we will find more out about that at AI Day 2. One thing that Elon said that everybody applauded, which of course they would, is if Tesla can actually achieve all of the goals that they have set in place, they will become the most valuable company on the planet. So obviously we all cheered that. That was huge news. And this is something we've talked about on here before, that looking at the direction that they're going, that is going to be the most valuable company without a doubt. Of course, even Elon himself says we need to make sure that we actually do achieve these things, but they are moving in that direction to make this all happen. Now, Gary Black, and we all love Gary Black. So Gary, if you are watching this, which I doubt you are, but dude, you are awesome. We love you. And he asked Elon a question nobody else is asking out there, which is, hey, succession. What do you guys and the board have planned for succession for you? God forbid something happens, and Elon's like, well, if I get kidnapped by aliens or I go back to my home planet, I'm confident that we have a very strong team that can continue the company moving forward. And Elon said he'll stay there with the company as long as he is useful. And as of right now, he's obviously doing his duties, but he feels like his, the best position that he could be in is for factory design, product design, and factory optimization. Getting the production moving forwards. You go back to the beginning where Elon had basically set out and predicted where they would be at for production for the foreseeable future. And they did exactly that, which is why their exponential growth curve for production is textbook to exponential growth curve. That is where Elon's prowess is. He is very good at those things. And so that's where he would like to be, and he's already said before, he doesn't like to do the daily minutia stuff that comes with being a CEO, but he's confident that if something did happen to him, there's a strong team behind him that can carry the company forward. But he said that is a legitimate question, and he thanked Gary for asking that question because it is not an easy one to answer, but they do have a strong team that can carry them forward. And Elon did say that the only two publicly traded companies that he owns are Tesla and Twitter. We know privately he owns SpaceX, Boring, Neuralink, those things. But so those are the only two he owns, and he does say that, Twitter isn't part of when he was looking back at X.com back way in the beginning, when he had these grandiose plans, something like Twitter was a part of that. For where they're at right now, it doesn't fully integrate with what the master plan is, but when it comes to his grand scheme on his own personal level, he feels that Twitter could be an accelerant, a 3-year accelerant for a lot of this and be very useful for the world. So while it's not part of the exact plan that he is working on, he thinks that it could certainly help very much in the future, which is why he is going towards this. And of course, everyone was like, all right, enough about Twitter, the stock is dropping. But you know, at least he was clear about that. So yes, he is still focused on going towards Twitter. You know, I've been checking daily to see if there's any Form 4 filings of him selling his shares. There has been nothing, and now he has said this, so he's definitely still looking towards it. So we're waiting to see what ends up coming out of that. We'll find out more about that in October. And he said that a lot of times people are very short-sighted. They have things like, you know, factory shutdowns, and we've got some downtime in factory, we've got supply chain issues, and people start to panic. And he's like, as far as I'm concerned, you look long-term, you get moments like this and people panic sell, that is a time to buy the dip. So Elon himself reiterating, look, if you are a long-term investor, and I know many of you on here are long-term investors, Elon is saying, we get moments like that, buy the dip. And for me, that's why I dollar cost average, and then I add more every time we do dip, because I'm looking long-term and I can see where the company is going, and that's why I want to be on board for it. So all in all, it was a great meeting, and again, thank you guys for joining us on it. And as we had thought, you know, he answered the questions basically as I thought that he would. Kind of gave us a little more in-depth detail on most of the stuff that we already knew. We got nothing really new out of this meeting. So again, when it comes to the stock price, don't know what it's going to do. Maybe at this point, kind of testing the macro waters to see where we're at. Does seem like Kirsten Sinema has given her thumbs up to the EV tax credit bill that is going to be coming out. So the Senate should be voting on that. I think they're voting on it today. I do not know for sure, but that's the last information I had, because the Senate goes to recess next week. So I have a feeling they're going to be discussing that. So we'll track this. And again, once I get more details on it, I will share more of that information with you guys, because I am buying my Model Y. So it's very important information for me. So once I get it, I'll share that with you guys. Otherwise, we're going to track the stock today, 935 again. I want to see us break through that level. If we can break through that, then 950 will be our next step. Again, it's Friday. Maybe we get the Friday fade. Don't know what's going to happen. We will see how the day trades. And otherwise, my biggest takeaways from this is the stock split has been approved. We will get the details in the 8K over the next week. The buybacks are on the table for when we get through some rough economic times. Seems like in Elon's mind, if you're trying to plan out how you think he's going to make decisions, 18 months of a mild recession and inflation coming down very rapidly. Seems like their commodity prices are already coming down as far as the 6-month out futures are going as of this moment. Supercharger network is going to be doubling next year. Cybertruck coming to volume production middle of next year. And a lot of exciting new things on the product roadmap that they still have yet to share with us, which are new products that are not just copies of what other people are doing. And if for any reason we get a near-term dip in the stock, consider it a buying opportunity. So those are the biggest takeaways that I got from this meeting. I have our entire live stream down in the link below if you guys want to watch the meeting in its entirety. My personal recommendation, if you do that, probably skip the first half hour. I will definitely timestamp that for you guys if you want to skip through the first boring part of the thing, and I'll get to where the part where Elon comes out and does his talking, so you guys can skip to that. And for those of you guys who did watch it, let me know in the comments below what your biggest takeaways were from this, what things you would like to see in the future, what did you agree with, what did you disagree with, what are you excited about most, and what are you looking forward to in the future for Tesla, and do you think they're going to be able to achieve all of the goals that they have set in place to be able to reach the most valuable company on the planet? Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate all of your support and feedback. If you have not subscribed, please do so down below. Sign yourself up for notifications. I am over on Twitter at OracleTim1. I share all the latest Tesla news, pertinent stock market information, and all of my daily trades. We do have a Discord chat. That link is down in the description. And if you'd like to support the channel any further, we do have a Patreon. That link is also in the description. Thank you so much. Have a great one.